Hello, everybody, and thank you for tuning in to the Indiana State Police Roadshow. I'm your host, Sergeant John Prine, Public Information Officer at the Indianapolis District for the Indiana State Police. The Roadshow is brought to you each and every week by the Indiana State Police Alliance and Cops for Kids, a subsidiary of the State Police Alliance. For more information about our sponsor, you can visit them at www.indianasfinest.com. Thank you to all our friends at MS Communication Network Indiana for getting us on the radio waves across the great state of Indiana every single week. We so appreciate all our partnerships with all the radio stations out there that carry us. We're honored that you're willing to share our message, and we appreciate the partnerships. You can find the Indiana State Police on the YouTube channel. That's where you can see in person the recorded road shows, thanks to the efforts of Mr. Tom Trial. We'd like for you to subscribe to that Indiana State Police YouTube channel so that you can be updated on all the content that Tom and others put on there. And so our show begins. Here we are. It's the holiday season. Unfortunately, also an increase in drunk drivers. And my guest today is Trooper Cameron Bottoma. He's a trooper from the Indianapolis District, but kind of a unique, not necessarily a skill set, but a unique status, essentially, is in less than 5 years as an Indiana State Trooper, Trooper Bottoma has arrested more than 650 drunk drivers. So that's an incredible amount of work.
Yeah, it's a passion I have. I remember when I was in the academy, we go through tons and tons of things in the academy, but when the DUIs came in, the field sobriety instructors came in, I was in the front row all over to the right, and they started talking about field sobriety, and right away I started kind of itching like this. I knew that was my niche. Right away I knew that DUI enforcement is where I was going to find my passion. It's kind of carried out, obviously, into the road and into my career so far. And you've been real fortunate to be put in the position to work midnights in the Indianapolis District, right. But these drunk drivers don't just come to you. I mean, you go out and right. You make it a mission. And it's important on top of your other duties that you're responding to crashes and everything else. Right. You've really made it a mission. And it's not about putting people in jail. It's about saving lives. Exactly. And I know that's a little bit cliche, but undoubtedly your efforts have saved lives. I mean, you can't... Well, I appreciate that, but I know that DUI enforcement is something that's very big for our department, and it has been since... people have been driving cars, and even our friends up in Bremen and around the state could probably tell us about DUIs and horse and buggies, and that carry over even before the invention of cars. But I have this, like you said, it's kind of cliche. So I literally view every intoxicated driver removed from the roadway as a prevented fatal crash, or at least some kind of bodily injury, catastrophic injury, and. People tell me, I've heard a lot of people ask me, like, well, can you help me out? Help me out here. What they're asking me to do is take them to the next gas station and drop them off, or call their family, friends, or let them come pick them up somewhere. And I actually do tell them, like, I have a different perspective on this, and that I am helping you by taking you off the roadway tonight, and so that you aren't separated from your family either forever or for years in jail because you killed somebody. Yeah,
and again, a DUI arrest is never about a check mark or a tally mark right. or a statistic. We know that people die in crashes as a result of drunk drivers, and every person that gets behind the wheel intoxicated knows that they're doing something wrong. And sometimes people are like, well, I didn't realize I was drunk, or I didn't realize I had so much to drink, or, whatever it may be, I didn't know where I was at. You knew that you had consumed alcohol.
That's correct.
And in today's world, the options to get home are almost limitless.
That's right.
And driving a car isn't one of those options.
That's right.
But people still do it.
Right. I can tell you just from the 5 years I've been on the road, specifically, I'd say the last 2 years, there has been such a major change in the first 2 or 3 years I worked the road. So I'd say around 2018 or even in 2019, there was a big change in that I see Uber and Lyft just everywhere, and which is great because, like I said, we're not out here to just get stats and check off the boxes. We want to. Part of our sworn duties is to protect people, defend, and that's including the innocent. So when I see those little blue or purple lights on Lyft and Uber, while I know that I likely won't be arresting a DUI for that night, and I'm grateful for that because it means that people are making the wise decision. They're understanding the consequences of a DUI and the financial ramifications and the stress that puts on people. It's so much easier to get out your phone and click the Uber app and pay $8 and get home 10-minute Uber ride than it is to spend the night in jail and have thousands and thousands of dollars in litigations and really forever change your life. $8 Uber ride can be the best $8 one ever spent.
Yeah, and that's what our goal is to prevent these. We don't go out and hide and get tricky and things like that. But when you get behind a car that's intoxicated, I'm sure there's been dozens of instances where from the moment you see the car that the way they're driving,
right,
this is a drunk driver.
Yeah. So there's a lot of different types of moving violations that we look for. Everybody immediately thinks of the vehicle that's going to be all over the roadway and that is usually your dead giveaway. But another thing that people may not necessarily think about but people's depth perception begins to change. And somebody will come to a stop maybe 100 feet short of the stoplight or 100 feet short of the stop sign. That's usually a giveaway. Or they go way past and they stop in the middle of the intersection. Those are in addition to the people driving, like a snake on the roadway. Those are really those are more often than not, in my experience of working in midnights anyways, a vehicle that's operated by an intoxicated driver. Another really common one is middle of the night, somebody not with no headlights on. I don't know how they're able to see, but thankfully we are able to see them and their car coming at us before they hit somebody. But those are just a couple of the real big things you look for, to where, like you said, Sergeant, is right away you can look at this vehicle and say, that person driving that car is most likely intoxicated.
Yeah, and what if we know that people out there driving see somebody who they think is intoxicated, and oftentimes it has to do with timing, middle of the night, dark roads, whatever it may be. What should somebody do if they think they see somebody who's driving impaired? Well,
one of the things that I always encourage people to do is just call 911. That's what we're here for. That's how we get dispatched on the Indiana State Police, particularly here in Indianapolis. Most of our calls for service are on the interstate. And people think that intoxicated drivers just on the city streets going from bars or house parties, but people are getting to and from these houses and these bars using the interstate. So if you think that you may be behind an intoxicated driver, do not hesitate to call 911 so that our dispatch centers can dispatch it out. There may not necessarily be a troop that's on the next mile marker, but there are other agencies that we work in partnership that listen to our radio frequencies that may be closer to able to get that car stopped before it can cause a crash. We would much rather every officer, trooper, deputy, anybody I know would rather work a traffic stop than work a crash.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's important to note that the Indiana State hands-free law exempts you from calling 911. So if you pick up your cell phone to dial 911 to report a drunk driver, that is not a violation of the Indiana hands-free law. So it's important that people understand that. Sometimes the situation would allow you to follow that driver and update dispatch where they are. But if that driver's driving recklessly or fast or just making it dangerous for you to be around them, then we don't encourage you to follow them.
Correct.
And so, again, a lot of our DUI arrests are generated through the watchful eye of our good law-abiding drivers who see these other drivers.
Yeah, and if I can piggyback off of that, our regional dispatch center, so when you call 911 and you end up speaking with a state police dispatcher, they are trained to know when and when you shouldn't continue following a possible intoxicated driver, somebody that's specifically at a high rate of speed or obviously if somebody's doing the wrong way on the interstate, dispatchers aren't going to have you follow them, but they are trained to tell you whether to keep following them based on the information that the 911 caller is able to provide for them. So,
and the best description that you can get, sometimes we'll get a call that all they know it was a black truck. But if you can give us, maybe a black truck with a headlight out, a taillight out, a license plate light out, something about that truck. But if you can get us the license plate number safely, that is very beneficial because a lot of times that'll tell us where the person's going.
Correct.
And we can intercept before they get home.
That's right.
A DUI call is a priority call for us. We know the dangers because unfortunately all of us have stood on the doorstep of somebody to knock on the door to tell them that their loved one was killed in a crash by a drunk driver.
Absolutely.
And that is the absolute most heart-wrenching, gut-wrenching thing that we do as police officers is have to do those death notifications.
Absolutely.
And that's why Cameron has worked so hard to prevent that, and undoubtedly has in his 5-year career with more than 650 DUI arrests. He is recognized every year since year one as one of the top DUI enforcers in the state. 2 years in a row was the top, with more than 200 in 1 year was very impressive. So I want you to know that your efforts don't go unnoticed. There are a lot of things that police officers do every day to save lives. Everybody works hard, but you've definitely gone above and beyond the expectation, I guess, for lack of a better word, to really make it your mission to take these people off the road, and it's appreciated.
I appreciate that. My goal, I was trained very early on, is that goal number one. First night of training, my field training officer, he's a sergeant. He's my squad sergeant now, but Sergeant John Goodale told me, you have 3 goals every time you mark on duty. Goal number 1 is to go home. And number 2 is to make things safer. And I think that DUI enforcement makes things safer. And especially, Sergeant, with the holiday season we're in right now, between Christmas and New Year's and Thanksgiving, there are so many holiday parties. There are so many Christmas parties and Hanukkah parties and New Year's parties, all these kinds of things where people are in, with the way 2020 is going to be, has been, and there are so many holiday parties where people are going to be drinking, and they're probably, frankly, going to be drinking too much. When people know that police officers, not just state troopers across Indiana, but across our whole state, we're out here, we're trying to enforce these rules, these laws, so that people get home safely. But if anybody who's watching this or listening to this, please be smart in how much you drink. And if you're going to drink anything, don't get behind the wheel.
That's right.
But the thing is that DUIs go beyond just alcohol. Marijuana is just as deadly as alcohol. Hard narcotics, taking too many prescription medications. Those prescription bottles, they say on the bottom, on the back, they say use caution or do not use heavy machinery. That's not a forklift. Mm-hmm. Okay, it's not a bulldozer. It's a vehicle as well. Mm-hmm. So be cognizant of that, and listen to your doctors. And if you have any of those things in your system, make sure that you're making other arrangements so that somebody else is driving instead of you.
You know, and sometimes you could feel like you're just barely close, and you make the decision to drive. And I have a story that years ago I arrested a drunk driver, and her friend were at a party together. She had had a little bit too much to drink, but she didn't want to leave her car at the party. And so her friend said, I'll just follow you home to make sure you make it home. Mm-hmm. Well, unfortunately, at a stoplight, her friend rear-ended her.
Yes. And
the person who caused the crash was sober, wasn't arrested, but unfortunately the person who was crashed into,
the victim of the
went
crash,
to jail. Yes. And that's common. And the reason I tell that story is be a good friend. Don't be like, okay, you're okay to drive, I'm going to let you. Do whatever you can to convince them not to. And if they absolutely insist, and as hard as it would be, you may have to call us and say, hey, they just left, and I couldn't stop them.
Yeah. There's a lot of bars that have signs that say overnight parking permitted until like 9 a.m. or something. Those bar owners understand people are going to have too much. They're giving you an out by saying, hey, leave your car here. We're not going to tow your car. Go home. Yeah. Then come back when you're responsible and legal enough to drive.
Well, and here's the simple thing. If you're going somewhere and you know that you're going to be consuming alcohol, don't drive there.
Exactly.
Right? That just takes that decision out of the mix. And
exactly.
So it all comes with proper planning. We want everybody to enjoy their holiday together. But, somebody selfishly making the decision to drive while intoxicated puts so many lives at risk.
That's right. And if you're going to be the designated driver, actually be the designated driver.
Yeah.
My second night out of the academy, the very first person that I ever arrested was a designated driver. So actually be a designated driver.
Being a designated driver doesn't mean you just don't drink that much.
Right.
It means you don't
drink at all.
Yeah. Right. And again, everybody wants to celebrate. And this year is very, very different with what those celebrations look like.
Yes.
But please help us make this the year that on New Year's Eve or Christmas Eve or any of the days around them or any other time this year, don't make us knock on somebody's door and tell them their loved one isn't coming home.
Particularly your own family. Yeah.
Our guest today has been Trooper Cameron Bottoma. He's a 5-year veteran of the Indiana State Police and has made it a personal mission recently throughout his entire career to remove those drunk drivers from the roadway. He has become an expert at it with more than 650 DUI arrests in less than 5 years. his efforts are very much appreciated. Appreciate you coming in today to talk with us. Looking forward to having you back to talk with some other things. And hopefully your New Year's and your Christmas are quiet.
Yeah.
All right.
Hopefully
Thank you.
Same for you and your family as well.
Thank you for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.